Meliodas stood over the dead bodies of his two subordinates. The blood of dead demons soaked his hands for the first time ever. He had sparred with his kin before and drawn their blood, but he had never killed any one of them before. Arnok and Zena were two of his most loyal comrades, two of the commandments that he had picked himself. But they were going to kill the hostages. They were going to kill Elizabeth. He had to leave. He had to leave now. He had to... Young master. Meliodas froze, and Chandler came to stand next to him, looking over the dead bodies of the commandments. Chandler, please, go. I need to leave. Young master, you know I cannot let you do that, Chandler declared, and Meliodas' anger began to flare. Chandler, I command you to leave me alone. Chandler looked at the young prince, remembering when the boy was so young he didn't even understand the concept of commanding around the elder demon. Chandler sighed, his conversation with the deity of the clan playing in his head.
I can sense it through his commandment. Meliodas is about to do something drastic. Never let him leave his post. Stop him by any means necessary and bring him to me.
Chandler sighed. My apologies, young master, but I have orders to stop you from a being with more authority than even you. As Chandler began to transform, Meliodas cursed his father as he leveled his blade, summoning his own darkness. This was not a battle he could take lightly. Chandler, I don't want to have to do this to you, Meliodas declared, fully transforming into assault mode. Young master, trust me when I say. Chandler completed his transformation, standing with his staff at hand. Neither do I. Both alpha demons lunged into the battle. Before we hop into this battle of the student and their master, please do me a favor and drop who you think is going to win in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, hit that little notification bell so you don't miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Now, let's get into it. What's up guys, eldest here, and here we are to talk about a battle between master and student for the first time ever. It's time for a mighty match of world-shattering proportions. Today we see who shall win between the unrivaled peaks of the demon race. The young student steps to challenge the old master. It is time to open a discourse on the battle between the prince of the demon world, the scion of the king of darkness, and the future king of humanity, Meliodas, versus the old guardian of the archaic demon world, the mighty warrior split from the original demon and the teacher of the prince of darkness, the pacifier demon Chandler. Rather than cleanly splitting the battle up, let's actually try to merge all three sections together and see what we can do with that. So let's hop right into it with power, speed, and abilities all at once. So Meliodas in his prime is a menace, and yes, we're using prime Meliodas because this is the time where the battle would take place. And if I use true magic, well, y'all probably know what happens if I use true magic. In the same vein, if I were to use a post-druid Meliodas, y'all know what would happen. He'd die. Like, this is not a problem. However, Prime Meliodas is a different story. Man's an absolute menace in like all of his stats, whether it be his power, his speed, or his abilities. That's with both statements and scaling, because the man's just flat out a menace. So you take a look at someone who's weaker than Prime Meliodas, which would be his post-resurrection assault mode self. And while not even at his prime power in terms of just plain on assault mode, not to talk about the missing commandment amp, manages to body bag a late morning Escanor while toying around with him. Then on top of that, goes on to slap up both of his younger brothers while they had their commandments, and he didn't, and he did this with just his darkness alone. He never actually really fought them himself. Then he casually no-diffs a base Cusack with nothing but a darkness tendril, and in the past he's even nuttier. According to the Demon King himself, Meliodas was known as the most wicked and all-powerful demon while in his prime, and then on top of that he managed to fight off Mael after pulling up on Mael in his own realm in broad daylight, and then also in the past he manages to leap in front of and absolutely block off a Ludishel in his prime body wielding Flash, and forces Ludishel to grab the other two Archangels to come pull up and even try to fight Meliodas and get past him to get to the Endura and Elizabeth. And then of course he has the entire fight with the Demon King, where he somehow managed to live for a little bit. We don't know how long that fight went, but he managed to take any hits at all without being absolutely one-shot, which is impressive in of itself. Then of course you have the fact that this Meliodas is still a pure menace just through scaling of statements. Like, Zeldris claims that Meliodas is stronger than him, and this is backed up by their fight. This is backed up the fact that Meliodas still seems to be entirely superior to Zeldris in the past when both were arguably closer to their primes. But even then, I'd argue there are weird arguments you can make about Zeldris and where his true prime is, whether it be in the modern time due to his commandment or in the past depending on when he got his commandment. But still, that's pretty menacing, because, you know, Zeldris went and slapped up late morning Escanor, Margaret Body, Ludishel, and Post Infinity Merlin all at once. And then on top of this, he managed to fight off Full Wings King using a single Spirit Spear from a distance, managed to hold off the one Escanor for a little bit, and also proceeded to fight and actually beat an Afternoon Mael, needing Mael to take a hit, fake being dead or fake being defeated, and then come in and off guard Zeldris while he was distracted and driven towards his goal. And that Zeldris is weaker than Meliodas. And all those power feats still do very good for his speed, because for him to be keeping up, if not just directly outpacing characters like True Body Ludishel, Mael, Zeldris, all these different monstrous characters that happen to be monsters in of their own rights in terms of just speed, not to talk of power, he's just doing good, honestly, in terms of raw speed as well. That puts him as one of the fastest characters in the series, considering he's blitzing characters like Zeldris, who has known to have the fastest sword in the demon world, just with his darkness. While Zeldris is mid-swing, he essentially Zeldris, which is pretty darn wild. And then of course you have Chandler. And Chandler is a monster in his own right. He was able to fight off 4 of the 7 deadly sins at once on his own after being debuffed by them, after getting tricked by Gother. He was able to perception blitz Merlin, who just couldn't sense where he came from, and absolutely outsped her. And then this is post-infinity Merlin, by the way. And then once he proceeds to transform, he scares off the 7 deadly sins, casually body bags Drow and Gloxinia, and proceeds to move onwards to come back, fight alongside Cusack and Zeldris, and proceed to casually match a post-infinity Merlin, and on top of that take no damage from her attacks until she starts exploiting his weakness, which is extremely impressive for a demon like Chandler, who's just super tough, super strong, super durable. In terms of his statements, he's supposedly extolled and praised as the strongest of the demons outside of the Demon King himself. They're known as the toughest, the fastest, and the strongest. It's just what they're known as, and that's extremely impressive for Chandler. Both are extremely fast and extremely powerful, and they have good abilities to back this up too. Meliodas, even in his prime, is a master swordsman, is a whole demon, meaning he can heal with attacks using his darkness, make weapons out of his darkness, make shields with his darkness, and overall uses darkness as a very potent and diverse tool which allows him to defend and attack at the same time. Then he has the pinnacle of his darkness, which is assault mode, where he's able to just completely cover himself in it and use all those previous techniques with absolute ease. And on top of that, he can sense magical energy, and combine this with the fact that he is a demon with access to sealing, and he's already doing pretty good. But that's still not even the end of his abilities. On top of this, he can fly, and then you move onward from that even, and you go to his things like soul extraction, where he can just touch you or mumble a curse, and then suddenly you're losing your soul if you really need to. And then on top of even that, he has full counter, which allows him to reflect any attack back at someone else with either twice or several times the force. And then he has revenge counter, which he should have access to. I don't think he developed that over the years. It was probably a variation of the technique made by Chandler still. Then he has counter vanish, which allows him to absolutely destroy any attacks that come at him as long as he can read their timing properly, just like with full counter, by making them just flat out disappear. Also, he's one of the most potent users of the Hellblaze, giving him absolute ability to just throw it out. It is a black flame that he can fire out from anywhere he wants, from his weapons to his hands, to absolutely burn away his opponents with a dark eternal flame that will not go out. Chandler honestly puts his student to shame though, because Chandler is way more diverse of a magician. He has all the same demonic base abilities that Meliodas has. And then he has the extra property of just corrosive spit. His spit is acid-like and can burn straight through the floor of a castle. But the longer list to cover is his actual unique abilities, which includes Absolute Cancel, which allows him to cancel any magic used against him, Absolute Order, which allows him to take a person's free will away by casting a spell on them with a symbol on his hand that makes them do whatever he commands them to, or they die. And then on top of that, he has Crimson Requiem, where he heats his hand up with a whole ton of hot, heat, steamy magic and proceeds to fire it off and melt anything in the vicinity of his attack. Then he has Dragon Claw, where he spawns a Dragon Claw from his staff and attacks his target. Then he has Exterminate Ray, just a blast of energy that he can fire off at somebody. Then he has Full Counter, the ability to reflect any magic attack with at least double the magic power. Then he has Grudge Blade, which allows him to just fire off a blade of energy rather than a beam of energy. Then he has Illusions, which are quite potent. On top of that, he has the Magical Defensive Wall, where he's able to just throw up a barrier around himself. Then he has Meteor Works, where he calls down meteors after chanting a little bit. And on top of that, he has Microscopic, which allows him to shrink things down by firing that spell at them. Then he can just rip off parts of his body and create little miniature versions of him, although they are much weaker than him. Then he has the ability to cast True Night, which allows him to amp himself and overall just brings an area of darkness to an entire place. Then he has Wind Magic, where he can just cut people apart by swinging some wind around. It's very, very good. Chandler has a very solid moveset. But let's talk about some issues. A thing I commonly see online is that everyone puts Assault Mode Meliodas at 142,000 and assume that's his flat power level for the rest of the series until he goes into the Cocoon, but that's actually not the case. Meliodas is getting stronger from the very moment he loses to Escanor. As Merlin notes, he's just growing more and more powerful than he ever was before, actually reaching his prime state. When Melasculo says that he returned to his state as he was when leader of the Ten Commandments, she means that in his mentality, and she can probably sense that by like how potent and impure his darkness is, rather than the raw power he had. So 142,000 is not a prime Assault Mode Meliodas' limit. nowhere near, honestly. But let's move on to the other thing. Chandler being stated the strongest of the strong and the most mighty of demon. I mean, yes and no, but the real answer is no. Meliodas has proven himself stronger than Chandler in a couple different areas by either scaling above his fusion state, which is the original demon, or just flat out doing things that Chandler never could, like fighting and forcing a Mael of any kind to run away. Meanwhile, the fused state of Chandler gets absolutely one-shot by that same Mael. However, those are the two main discrepancies I wanted to hit real quick. Let's hop into the battle itself. Now, to put this gently, Meliodas washes Chandler, like unbelievably so, through scaling, through feats. Heck, even if you want to take statements, in certain ways, you could very easily argue that the Demon King statement holds much more weight than Merlin's own statement, because one of these beings created both Chandler and Cusack, and also Meliodas in being his father. Meanwhile, Merlin is a character who, while also notorious for lying just like the Demon King, probably just isn't as reputable of a source. And on top of that, just in general, Meliodas just scales better by a long shot. Being able to fight Zeldris and dominate him is still insane, because even if Zeldris was in base demon mark, he still had his commandment. And compared to that, Chandler was a bit afraid of Zeldris, who was in base demon mark with no commandment, just activating Omnis Nebula, to the point where he literally latched himself onto a wall and stayed away. Then of course, you have the fact that this Zeldris goes on to fight a Full Wings King who was about to one-shot the original demon, which is Chandler refused with his other half, not to talk of an actual normal Chandler. And of course, normal Chandler, honestly, he's sort of just lacking in terms of raw feats. He has really good statements, but the feats themselves is where he's quite lacking a bit, because due to his sheer lack of screen time, he fails to fight a lot of the characters that would actually get close to Prime Meliodas' level in terms of raw power. Like, he doesn't really have any fights that prove he's even really relative to Zeldris, considering on how he interacts with Omnis Nebula and how he interacts with the entire situation with Merlin, and on top of that, the entire situation when he was the original demon against Mael. All these characters who are either relative to or just flat out weaker than Meliodas are either decently or extremely superior to someone like Chandler, even in his true state. And that's the main problem for someone like Chandler. He doesn't have the power and speed to keep up with someone like Meliodas. And here's the thing about Meliodas. Even in character, I'm pretty sure he takes Chandler seriously. Because it's Chandler, it's his master. He pretty much knows everything that Chandler could do. And even if he doesn't, he is 100% aware of the fact that Chandler is dangerous in of himself. Even if he doesn't know all his techniques, he's not going to let Chandler get any of them off, because it's Chandler. He knows about his master. He was literally raised by him as the Demon King commanded. So Meliodas very likely to just blitz and body Chandler before you can do anything. I don't even think any of the abilities will come into account, because Meliodas will be more than fast enough to reflect any attacks that really come at him, including something like a Grudge Blade or an Extermination Ray. And every one of the special attacks, Meliodas is going to sense and avoid. He can sense status promotion and react to it. It wouldn't be shocking if he could just dodge Microscopic, or flat out reflect Crimson Requiem, or do whatever he really wants to Chandler, because Chandler is going to be on the meanest of defensive games right now throughout the entire battle. If Meliodas even lets there be a battle, which could be possible, you know, Prime Meliodas, let's just ignore the fact that he knows Chandler and who he is and his possible danger. Let's just say Meliodas even lets the battle go on for too long. Chandler's sort of at a stalemate, because none of his techniques are really going to work unless he maybe pops out Absolute Order. But even then, I wonder if that can be full countered, for one. And two, Meliodas, the moment he sees Chandler go for something like that, isn't going to let him do it, because the speed gap is so large that Meliodas would literally clear it in an instant and chop off his hand. And then probably chop off his other one. And probably just keep it pushing. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. This battle, like the best win condition I can see for Chandler is Absolute Order. Because I don't think Split Tama's doing anything. True Knight is just going to amp Meliodas himself. The wind magic is going to bounce off of Meliodas. Meteor works. That could be a good distraction, but I don't think any of the meteors are going to do damage to Meliodas. He's literally just going to dodge through all of them and keep hunting down Chandler. The magical defensive wall was able to get broken down by post-training King and Gother, not to talk of a prime Meliodas. Then the illusions, they'd be nice, I guess, but Meliodas is likely just going to charge through them. He's more of a physical fighter anyway, so he's not going to just throw a wave of Hellblaze. He would just run in and go nuts in terms of just the raw slaughterfest that's going to ensue. There's just nothing that Chandler can do, and full counters is just absolutely useless, because Meliodas learned it from Chandler, so of course he's going to know that Chandler has full counter. So he's not going to use any of his magical attacks. That's the thing. The only hope Chandler could have is Absolute Order, because nothing else works. He's not strong enough. He's not fast enough. So it's very unlikely that he could even use absolute order, but Chandler would instantly have to resort to that, and hopefully it would work. Because Chandler states that bad boy works because of a darkness contract and the fact that he's a high order of demon, or the highest order of demon. But I'm pretty sure Meliodas kind of ranks higher than Chandler. Chandler's still a servant to the royal family, while Meliodas is the royal family. But even still, I don't think Meliodas would get that far. I think it's kind of unfair for Chandler. I think Chandler sort of gets mopped up by Meliodas without much trouble. Meliodas' scale is way higher, he's way faster, he's way stronger, and honestly, none of the abilities that Chandler has are really going to work well in his favor, because they're either getting full counter right back in his face, and or he's just not going to be able to use any of them in time before he gets decapitated and body bagged, and then Meliodas leaves. Because to be fair, I don't think Meliodas would kill Chandler. I think he's too fond of him. But at the same time, I don't think Chandler's going to beat Meliodas. But that's what I think. Tell me what you guys think in the comment section down below. And also, tell me, do you like this kind of format? Do you prefer it where I try to like stuff all the sections into each other without clear divides? Or do you like it when I like split it up nice and clean, nice and even? I don't know. I kind of prefer the nice and clean, nice and even, but I want to hear what you guys think. Please tell me in the comment section down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.